Today I'm checking out the IgniteX Beast by Celest. This is an IEM style headphone at a pretty affordable price, starting at $50 and going up to $70 depending on cable options. It features a molded custom fit style body with a single balanced armature and a single dynamic driver. It also comes in two colors. I've got the purple and red version, and there's a orange and yellow version. The shell, I believe, is a 3D printed epoxy, and it's a nice, smooth, and durable feeling material. It's also fairly lightweight, despite being a little wider than some of my other IEMs. Now, the standard cable is an 1/8 inch, 3.5 millimeter. I've got two different types of USB-C cables here, which have a built-in DAC. That's how it works over USB-C, and it features 32-bit audio. Those are an upgrade on it, and you can get the standard USB-C cable for an extra $10, and then the Pro cable with a boom mic for $20. Let's check out a little audio test of the boom mic and the standard mic on the USB-C cables. So now I'm recording with the onboard boom mic, and we'll see how the audio quality sounds. It is relatively comfortable enough. You can position it a little closer or further from your mouth, and yeah, hopefully it sounds good. The position alone should make this microphone sound better than the standard cable with one of those inline mics, but let's go test that now. All right, so now I'm recording with the inline mic, and with these, a big problem for me is having all this beard. I have to be kind of positioned out here so that the sound quality is okay, because if I stick it under my beard, it's a little muted. You may not have that problem. But the problem with these mics is often one of positioning, and just getting the audio to be clear is a little more difficult when you can't always position them clearly. I couldn't find any information on what the DAC chip in the USB-C cable is, but they say it features 32-bit audio, and I didn't have any issues with it. It sounded fine to me. The cable is sleeved in PVC, and while I don't have any real issue with it, it's just not my favorite material aesthetically. I think it looks a little bit cheap, and it's got a stretchy and shiny rubber feel to it that I don't love, but it works fine, and there's no real issue with it. There are some little kinks in the cables that don't quite come out. Again, not a real issue, but not my favorite material. The cable also has a slightly recessed connection that's a little bit smaller than some of my other IEM cables, so when I tried it out with some of my other cables, they worked, but they didn't always make the most secure connection, and they were prone to coming out, which I don't like if I was wearing these out. You should look for a cable with a small connector like this, or buy another cable from Celest if you wanted a different cable for this. While it's not proprietary, that recess in the housing makes it a little bit less secure with some other third-party cables. The packaging for it is fine and pretty nicely designed, but it's not quite as premium as some of the others I've had. For the price point, around $50, it's not the fanciest case for it, which doesn't matter too much, but it also doesn't come with a carry pouch or anything, just the sort of plastic bags that are reclosable and reusable for the accessories. It doesn't come with a real carry case for it, which, not a big deal, but if you are looking for something with fancier packaging, this is kind of basic. It comes with two sets of ear tips, one with a little more narrow bore and one with a wider bore, though neither is a super narrow bore, and they both come in small, medium, and large sizes, so there's 12 total ear tips. The boom mic also comes with two windscreens, so you have an extra if the first gets dirty. I prefer the slightly narrower bore ear tips, and they're not a super narrow bore, but they're the narrower of the two. They brought out the bass a little more, I thought, and while they weren't worlds different, I did prefer these slightly over the other ear tips. The sound signature, I would say, is overall pretty balanced. It tends a little bit towards the bright side, though it never got harsh for me. The bass is not the most impressive I've heard, but it's not totally underwhelming either. It's just not quite as loud in relation to the treble, and it's got a nice quality to it. It doesn't have maybe the best super sub extension. On the plus side, it's tight and doesn't ever get boomy. I listen to a lot of metal music, and with some headphones, the bass, if there's too much, can get a little boomy and overwhelming, especially if there's a lot of sub frequencies. It's not always the most complementary to the genre. These work out pretty well for metal music. The bass remains tight. It's not overwhelming, but it's not too weak either. You don't want an overly bright headphone without enough bass. On the top end, I never encountered any harshness. It's got good detail. It's got a push in the treble region that gives a nice aggression to things like electric guitars and vocals without getting overwhelming in the air frequencies and having too much cymbals and noise and things like that. On a lot of these IEMs, the mid-range is kind of scooped out to make it a little more pleasant and a little more hyped for music listening, but I didn't find it was excessively scooped. It didn't sound too hollow. There's a little bit of that going on, and that's pretty normal. And I think most people like that kind of sound signature, so it doesn't bother me at all. It never sounded unnatural or hollow or missing too much mid information, but it's not going to be a super flat listening experience, which I don't think you're going to find in many IEMs, at least not until you get into the super high-end range, where you might find some. I've been comparing these to others at this price point and higher, and I think these stack up well against others in their price range. I don't think that there's anything that these don't offer that others do. They all have a slightly different sound signature, but I think these keep up well, and I'm not missing anything in terms of detail, and the sound signature, I think, is also a good one if you don't mind that the bass is not quite as powerful as some other alternatives out there. If you like the idea of tight, controlled bass and good top-end detail, and you like the look and the price of these, you can't go wrong with them. They're a pretty solid choice. I don't have any serious complaints. However, I do think the cable and the attachment of the cable could be slightly improved.